This question seems to have a pretty straightforward question, right? Which choice best explains how beach erosion affects wildlife? So I think right away, two of these choices probably just don't feel like they match at all, right? So choice A is just kind of telling us that there was some sort of experiment. Over a 5-year period, researchers measured the size of each colony. Presumably it's a colony of birds or something. They compared their data to government-sponsored erosion studies that were already in progress. So it's telling us that there is some sort of study going on, probably measuring these things, but it doesn't make any sort of connection or talk about any effects, so that's not a good sign. Then choice C similarly kind of seems to actually say the opposite, right? The team was unable to definitively determine the cause of the decline. So there's a decline, but they're kind of going out of their way to say we don't know what's going on. And the question is telling us we need to explain how this happens. So phrases like we don't know are not going to be good here. So there are a number of theories. Michaels hopes to use those theories as the basis for new studies in the coming years, but this is all about like future stuff that could happen. It is not explaining anything in the moment, and that's what the question is asking. And that's really the key part of the question. I know I highlighted it as like one big piece, but there are little components of this. We do need to talk about erosion. We do not need to talk about wildlife. But if we had this full passage, we would see that the entire thing is about erosion and wildlife. That part's probably easy to check off and find in our line reference. The key component is we need to explain how this works. How is there this connection? What is the mechanism? So of the two remaining choices, B kind of does talk about an effect. The greater the rate of erosion, the greater the decline in the colony size, right? So that's clearly some sort of effect. But if we compare that to choice D, we see that D is better. Michaels believes that erosion disturbs the shellfish population on the seabed, limiting a vital source of food. So food for what? The wildlife, presumably. So this is a good example of why we need to pay really close attention to the question itself. It's asking us for the explanation. D is an explanation. B is kind of hinting at it, but it's not actually coming out and saying it. And so it's reasonable to think that there is some sort of, connection between the erosion and the decline in the colony size, but D actually does what the question wants and gets deeper into why that decline might be there, what the explanation could be. And you might need to make these kinds of decisions when you're dealing with these evidence questions, whether it's a single like this one or one of the paired questions in the current test. We will need to think about some choices that both seem to accomplish the same goals, but one of them is going to do it better. One of them is going to do it based on what's in the lines and not require us to do any sort of inferences or implications. So always go with the choice that is best supporting what the question is saying or asking for, and that requires the least work on your part to make the justification. The lines should do the justifying themselves.